Good afternoon. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Friday, June 26, 2020, and the time now is 3:05. Notice for this budget hearing was disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was issued on Tuesday, June 16, 2020. Second notice was on June 24th. The committee will hear and accept testimonies on Bill 282-35 LS, the Fiscal Year 2021 Appropriation Act as requested by the Governor relative to the Guam Election Commission, Fiscal Year 2021 budget request. Joining me for this budget hearing is Senator Jim Moylan and Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano. The conduct of this budget hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying on behalf of the department will be recognized by myself, and written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony may be read, and lengthy testimony should be summarized. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. I remind my colleagues and the panel that we'll be discussing your 2021 budget, and we may ask questions about 2020, but it's more focused on 2021. Participants will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you are done, you are asked to remain in the room for questions or additional testimony as may be desired by the members of the committee. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and or may be asked to leave or be escorted from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. You will state your name and title for the record. At this time, I ask the panel from the Guam Election Commission to rise and for our sergeant at arms to please swear them in. Thank you, Sergeant Arms. I will now ask the Director of the Guam Election Commission to please present her 2021 budget.
Si Zeus Masi, Mr. Chairman, si Maria Pangilinan Zu, Guahu, Executive Director of Election Commission Guahan. Half a day, Mr. Chairman, Senator Marsh and Senator Moylan, the Guam Election Commission respectfully submits its fiscal year 2021 budget request for $1,853,899 that will cover costs for the 2020 general election. This budget request was unanimously approved at a public meeting by the GEC board on January 16, 2020, and submitted to the Committee on Appropriations and the Bureau of Budget and Management Research on January 31st, 2020. Pursuant to 3 GCA 2110, the GEC's annual budget submission for election years shall include a detailed budget of the funding level necessary to meet all of its statutory requirements and abide by all policies and procedures set forth in its rules and regulations. We respectfully request that the total amount of $1,853,899 be appropriated for fiscal 2021, eliminating the need for future supplemental requests. The GEC Budget Digest outlines the necessary expenses for the general election. The GEC Functional Chart outlines the chapters of the election code, and the organizational chart reflects 14 full-time employees who perform duties in the conduct of Guam elections. To cite 3 GCA 7101, election expenses. All election expenses authorized and necessarily incurred in the preparation or conduct of elections as provided in this title, that's the election code, shall be paid from appropriations by Legislaturan Guahan, the Guam legislature. All payments shall be made in the same manner as our other public expenditures. The GEC respectfully requests an exemption from BBMR allotment release control. Section 1303, Article 3, Chapter 1, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, shall not apply to the appropriations and allocations to the GEC in this act. The GEC may draw against its respective appropriations as needed to meet its obligations in accordance with the drawdown schedule that GEC shall submit to the Director of the Department of Administration, the Speaker and Chairman of the Committee on General Governmental Operations, Appropriations and Housing of Ili Legislature Guahan, and the Chairman of the Committee. Sizuos Maasi for the opportunity to be here, and I am truly grateful for the privilege to continue to serve as the Executive Director of the Guam Election Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Pangilinan. I have a few questions. Has GEC received COVID federal assistance in FY 2020 this year? And it will probably extend to FY 2021. I'm not too sure. But could you please tell us about you were awarded $600,000 via the Help American Vote Emergency Act emergency funds?
Okay, so Senator, we received on April 16 $600,000 under the CARES Act for the conduct of the federal election. So those monies are being used for the primary and the general election. So far, we've purchased thermometers, and we continue, and we've rented additional space, as all of you know, so that we can minimize COVID by bringing it down on the first floor.
All right, thank you. Does the Guam Election Commission, GEC, have any outstanding retro employee salary payment as a result of the Competitive Wage Act of 2014? And if so, how many employees and what is the status of these payments? Being aware that in Public Law 3635 authorizes departments to liquidate any such obligations. Do you have any obligations?
And that was for fiscal year 2014?
No, that's from the Competitive Wage Act of
Oh, okay.
2014.
I'm sorry, ask me again, Senator.
Okay, the question was, do you have any outstanding retro employee salary payment as a result of the Competitive Wage Act of 2014?
Not as of 2014, but from fiscal year 2020.
Okay, and I'm happy you say that, because I'm very concerned is that if I'm correct, I think on the budget and on previous public law we passed, we gave you authorization of funding. It just doesn't seem to be getting to you, and I'm trying to understand why, when you cited a section in the Guam Code that maybe we need to reinforce by placing it in the Budget Act, that whatever you're appropriated, you should have full access to. Is that what you're really trying to tell us? And maybe that's what we need to just reinforce.
Yes, sir. So we want to make sure that we ensure the integrity of the independence and autonomy of the Guam Election Commission. Hence, I think the foresight of the legislatures before us said that keep them independent, make sure that the legislature gives them money, and make sure that the governor does not interfere with payments for the operations of the Election Commission. I believe, based on the citations I have, citations that were made, and based on the 21 chapters of the Election Code, that's how we've been operating since then.
Okay, so I just have to make sure when I do produce the Budget Act, I cite those citations, and maybe we'll just repeat it somewhere in the Budget Act, maybe 3 or 4 times, that maybe they'll finally understand that whatever you're appropriated, you should have full access. You have an election commission. that determines and approves the expenditures, the payment of employees, and everything else. I mean, nobody should be putting their hands in the pot that belongs to the commission and to protect our voting rights and our protection of our voting privileges. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. That being said, there is a $312,000 increase in your contractual service. Could you explain that, please?
So that comes across with the additional costs for Guam Public School Systems, I'm sorry, Guam Department of Education, and our police officers.
All right. Okay. It's just to make sure that you have the place to vote and you have the security to protect our ballots.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Senator Moylan, do you have any questions, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. Just like to continue on with the conversation per the chairman about your money and being allotted by BBMR. Has that always been the case, or that from? I know your experience here. You started when now with the Guam Election Commission in your current position?
I'm sorry, Senator?
So has this been the case? I'm just wondering how far you can go back with me with BBMR.
Okay. I came in 2011. And so when I came in 2011, at that time, then Chairman of the Commission, John Taitanu, and I went to see the governor's office and explained to them that we are not a line department. At that time, we were going through GSA for even purchase orders. So since that time, it has changed. Legal opinions were issued even back in 2006, and again in 2011, stressing the independence and autonomy, and that we were not a line agency, and that the commission was the final approving authority. The board of the GEC is the final approving authority.
So, you fall under, or the Election Commission falls under the executive branch?
Yes, Senator, may I just elaborate on that? In one of the court orders, it summarized the history of the Guam Election Commission in one of the court orders that we still abide by. And it does talk about why the Guam Election Commission is a part of the executive branch. The Guam Election Commission, by statute, has executive powers, legislative powers, and judicial powers. The reason why it's aligned with the executive branch, because the Guam cannot create a fourth branch of government, and that the GEC is more closely aligned with executive versus the legislature or the judicial branch.
Okay, autonomous versus, right? You're still we're going to take direction then from the governor's office because you're under the executive branch. You're not. You're semi-autonomous, not really autonomous. It's just. It seems odd, right? That's what I'm trying to say. This is the freedom of the election, but yet you fall under the executive branch.
Yes. So, as I ponder it through the years I've been there, at one time, before my time, the Guam Election Commission had a separate checking account, even for operations. And it came back to the Department of Department of Administration later on, even before my time. Maybe in 2009, it came back to the Department of Administration. And as I've taken a look at it through my years there, it is more economical if the Department of Administration remains the HR and the fiscal agent for the Guam Election Commission. It becomes a little tedious for operations from GEC in that we're, quote, a weird entity, in that why doesn't the governor's signature have to be there? Or how come it's the GEC board that approves it? But over time, with experience, we hope to be able to be more efficient with that, with the department, and it has been. It's gotten much better, and the Department of Administration, has helped us get through there.
Your position is appointed by the board, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Everybody else there, you have 18 full-time employees, all unclassified?
Actually, 14. We were hoping to be able to fill the one vacant position that was left vacant back in November of 2019. We haven't been able to. We were supposed to hire 3 temporary employees for the 2020 election cycle, and we're just starting to do that right since COVID.
The unclassified, the 14 unclassified, they go through the board as well? Where do
No.
Okay.
I go through the board, and in the code, so how it technically works is I present the budget to the board. And so the budget will have a staffing pattern, and they approve it. And I let them know throughout the year we provide monthly financial reports to the board, inclusive of personnel costs. Personnel are hired by me based on the approval of the board.
Those positions are advertised?
No, they're all unclassified.
Okay.
Unclassified positions,
Do not.
yeah.
Yeah. We recently heard some unclassified positions too, and we get a list from the administration. I'm just hoping, it appears like, okay, we have GEC under the executive, right? We have all the employees are unclassified positions, which do not have to be advertised. Where does this list of people come from? Does it come from the executive branch also?
Mostly by word of mouth. And so, Senator, it behooves us that almost everybody in Guam is involved with politics. So it's almost difficult to hire someone who's not involved in politics so that they can come to work with the Guam Election Commission. It becomes tricky sometimes, sir, but we make do. And I must point out to the senators and to the people of Guam, the current team of the Guam Election Commission is made up of 14 employees. Average age is 39, and 7 of them are college graduates, and 2 of them have over 15 years of experience in elections. Altogether, all 14 of us, we have 107 years of experience in elections. 2 of us are certified, nationally certified by the Election Center. We're certified in elections and registration administration from the Election Center.
I'm very pleased with your office performance, and I'm glad you shared that information. Is there a reason why these positions are not made classified?
Before my time, there was talk of us being classified. Throughout the years I've been there, what I'm getting from the commission is that it is appropriately unclassified. Again, Senator, help me find people that are not involved in politics.
Okay, I understand. One final question. If the parties took care of their own primary election, what's the budget that you will be saving if the parties, if we took care of our own primary election?
$365,000.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Moreland. Senator Kelly Marsh Taithano, ma'am.
Mananasiduus, thank you very much for being here, Siduus Maasi. And I'll go ahead and build on some of what we've been discussing. So it was very good to hear the way that you provided a profile of the staff, and it really gives us an understanding to be able to say that there's that 107 years of shared experience, that 2 are nationally certified. It really gives us a lot to be proud of with our election commission. So I've got 2 different documents here. Okay, so with that, in looking through the budget, we noticed in the Public Law 35 the one Public Law -3507, if that number is correct, but it said that there was 109,650 to authorize GEC to pay prior year obligations for the 2018 primary election. So have all those prior year obligations been paid, or are there any that are still ongoing obligations at this time?
The 2018 primary, prior year obligations have all been paid.
Malik. And outside of that, are there any other outstanding obligations, or is everything?
Yes, actually, when I came before you to request for the supplemental, and when Public Law 35-7 was passed, it included, I believe, a certain amount for the reappointments of the GEC employees. Because of the technical phrase in the law, even though the governor gave the staff accolades, we were not able to pay out the reappointment. There was actually, the legislature and both the governor as well signed it into law, not realizing that it did not allow the GEC to pay for the reappointments, that the money is there, but we're not allowed to pay for it.
Siduus Maasi for making us aware of that, because I have heard of other cases where there's a technicality. Like you said, a phrasing that was unintentionally incorrect or not as applicable as they wanted it to be, and then something is left hanging, or in some way it's not able to be paid out. Is that something that your oversight chair could work with in legislation, or something? We are going to be having a budget hearing coming up, so I think you'll be staying around for that. We'll hear you at this hearing, and then I think we'll work right into the next one. Is any of that addressed in our budget here, the bill hearing that's coming up?
Yeah, Senator Marsh, yes, I chose to address it in the Bill 307 hearing.
Gulf Malik. And so we won't get into the weeds of that because it's right around the corner. We'll be getting to that. But with the money that's in that bill, is that for the primary and general election that are coming up?
No, it was for the 2018 cycle.
Okay, so still, it's all still related to the 2018 cycle. Okay.
Yeah. Senator Marsh, every even year budget is for the for the primary election. Even years, primary election. Odd years, general election. Hence, we're coming before you for the supplemental for the fiscal year 2020 election for the remainder of fiscal year 2020.
Hungin, and that makes perfect sense because, of course, the two elections fall on either side of the fiscal year. So definitely. With the social distancing requirements, I know that you were able to go forward and put some of the theories into practice for the Jotnya mayor election. Were those successful? Which ones do you think you'll be putting forward? And I guess with the COVID-19 money that you received, is that going to be sufficient to take care of the needs as you see them at this point? Mm-hmm. I know that you're still working some of that out.
Yeah. With the COVID money, with regard to the dollar amount, we think that it's going to be sufficient. Unfortunately, or as a matter of fact, the special election was not a federal election. So the COVID money couldn't be spent on the Jotnya special election. But it was an excellent pilot for what is to come. We were able to use the thermal scanner thermometers. We're able to do the social distancing. And I must give kudos to our partners. The Superior Court of Guam came to our rescue. GPD was very busy with COVID. Superior Court marshals were lent to us to assist us with the security of the ballots. We also had with us the Department of Education. We changed from having the polling site in one cafeteria. We changed it so that we separated all the three precincts. We also were able to get hand washing equipment. Homeland Security helped us with some COVID supplies. And we just want to make sure that we know, public health. Public health provided us guidance. Public health also gave us the nod to hire, that it was a good idea to hire the school nurse to work with us that day. So with that, so yes, we're working on it. We're with the COVID money, we're going to hire additional folks to work the elections as well.
I know when we had some discussions, you were discussing the possibility of curbside voting. Were you able to implement that for the mayoral elections for Jotnya?
Absolutely. And let me tell you what happened. In a regular election or non-COVID time election, our curbside roster, we have a separate roster set up for curbside voting. Normally, that is only one sheet with about maybe 10 to 15 names on the sheet that would have voted curbside. For the Jotnya special election, we accumulated 6 sheets. So there were many more curbside voters for the Jotnya special election. And when the staff and I were debriefing, we were thinking first it was maybe besides COVID, the other influences were that it was raining at one time. I mean, it was raining really hard. And then secondly, we set up curbside directly in front under the canopy. So it looked really, really efficient. But what it did was we had more curbside voters than we're used to.
And if I could ask a few more details about that, because I think it's going to be important for us going forward, at least in some way. Was it just one lane, or were you able to set up more than one lane for the curbside voting? And time-wise, if you have any ability to make a comparison of whether you were able to accommodate people along the same lines of the amount of time it takes them to get in line and go through the process?
Absolutely not. The
Okay.
timing, it takes much longer for a voter to vote curbside. Okay. First and foremost, if you get down and go to the polling room, for the Jotnia special election, it took less than 3 minutes because it was only one office. To vote curbside, it requires that the ID of the voter be brought into the polling room. The precinct official in the polling room must validate that that person is registered on the main roster. The precinct official will then, as soon as it's verified that that person is a registered voter and appears on the rail signature roster, they will get the curbside roster, the ballot, and all the supplies that they need, and they will need to go back out. So that takes about 7 to 8 minutes in and of itself. Then we need to give the directions, the instructions to the voter inside, and then they'll proceed to vote secretly, and then the precinct official must go back in and cast the ballot inside. So it takes maybe at least 10 minutes to vote curbside.
Yeah, with that, so definitely additional time. Now, of course, for the mayoral vote, and I'm not going to, he's not giving me a hard time, so I'll just continue with this. In looking ahead, in just kind of considering any possibility for the primary, is there any ability to accommodate if there isn't a family in that car and they've got their mother or aunt, anybody from different districts, or is it only going to be able to work going forward, as far as we know for right now, that it has to be if you are supposed to go to a particular voting poll site, that it will only be able to accommodate people who are registered to vote at that polling site?
Yes, that is it. And Senator March, I'm sorry, I did not answer your question about how many lanes were set up. Actually, we were accommodating 3 cars at a time in Jotnia. With regard to your last question, only people that are registered to vote in that polling site can vote there. Senator March, may I add one thing for the people of Guam? Persons with disabilities can vote in the office based on current law. So based on current law, 30 days before the election, in-office absentee with excuse begins. So that means that they will be able to come in and vote 30 days before the election.
And so that we're providing really helpful information to the people of Guam, if you wouldn't mind just outlining just for a minute what it takes to be considered disability. Do you have to have a formal medical letter, or?
No. They will just sign an affidavit. The application for absentee voting indicates I am not able to go to the polling site because of, and they'll just choose from the list of Chapter 10 of the code, and one of them is a physical illness or physical disability.
Okay, so that really provides a lot of options to quite a few people that maybe haven't always taken advantage of that, but hopefully we can get that information out to them so that more of them that feel like they fit in those categories can avail themselves. And that may be one of the things we can do to assist.
Part of the COVID money, one of our options is to spend it on a voter mailer to let them, to assure the voters that just like we did for Jotnia, where we assured them we're taking all the COVID measure, COVID preventive measures, and that this is what you can avail yourself of.
Maulik. So the only other question that I think that I have is, in looking at your budget, so we talked about your staffing pattern a little bit, and you mentioned that there are 14 staff. Now, there was a little bit of a drop in at least the governor's request. How stable are your numbers? Are any staff looking to retire this year at all, or are you expecting any? No, no, no. We're not going to let that happen. So.
No. Like
Okay.
I said, Senator Marsh, the average age is 39. None of them, I think I'm the closest to retirement, and I have a commitment to my staff that they need to hurry up and decide who's going to be the director.
Well, I have faith that we'll have you for a few years more. You've been very beneficial there. There was another question that I wanted to ask. Oh, with the, I noticed in your letter that you had asked us to consider the full amount of your request so that there wouldn't be a need this next time for a supplemental amount. What kind of things are put at risk? Like, how do you handle having the possibility of $400,000 to $500,000 not being covered from your request?
I come before the legislature April, May, or June to request for the supplemental, with the assurance to the legislature and the people of Guam that we are being frugal and we are providing what it takes to conduct the fair and honest election. Senator March, I think since I've been there in 2011, I've come every year for a supplemental request.
Okay, so if we pass this in full, this would be the first year that you would not be coming back. And with the 600,000 in COVID, I mean, that would seem pretty efficient. Is there anything jeopardized, or is there anything that actually becomes more costly by this two-step process, would you say? Or is it just difficulties and challenges of having to come back again?
Yes, and I think one of them is that when there's not enough money in the pot, and we're trying to process the recruitment, when we're trying to recruit, we're not allowed to because there's no money in the pot, so we don't get our people in. We have to wait until the money gets allotted for us to right now we are recruiting precinct officials, and if you remember times in the past they didn't get paid until almost a month later because the money was not in the bank.
Well, and that does help us understand the stresses that it puts on the whole process and the efficiency and ability for it to be meeting the community's needs. So thank you for outlining that. And if I could just add on one last thing, I think you're getting some upgrades of either software or machinery. Could you outline a little bit of that for us, please?
Yes. So we sent out an invitation for bid some time ago. We sent out a purchase order recently to get 3 new central tabulators. That's the machines that tabulate the ballots. Those will be here sometime next month. Those were purchased with HAVA grant that we received in 2018. And the plan is to use it for the primary election.
And how long does machinery like that typically last? Will that be an investment that lasts us for the next 5 years? I know that technology is a fast-moving thing, so it's maybe a little hard to say that absolutely, but is there any prediction how long we're hoping it will last us?
No, but something, again, it's the technology, and something to visualize that is when we sent it out for bid, all right, it was operating under a different system. When we sent the purchase order, they said, "Oh, Maria, you're so lucky. We just upgraded the operating system." So that's inside of a year. Is it going to last us? You know, depends on what the election industry has to offer. With regard to central tabulators, right now there's a bigger machine that we. He's laughing because it costs a lot of money, but it's to run a lot more ballots. So based on staff input and the commission, the 450s are more appropriate for our Guam elections.
So does that mean that we may see some increased efficiency, maybe some ability to learn of the results a little bit quicker? I mean, I think we do pretty well, but is that some of what's going to happen?
Yeah. If you remember the 2018 primary election, we had the general, right? The general election where we had write-ins. And so the old machine, stopped for every write-in vote. So that took a long time. With the new machines, it can sort and just keep going and sort for 3 different items. So yes, we will see some efficiency with the new machines.
Maulik, that sounds very good, and I look forward to that. Sijus Maasi, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to ask a few questions and explore a few things.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Sabina Perez, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Ms. Pangilinan and Tom. Thank you for being here. So just, I guess I want to follow up some of the questions that my retiring speaker was asking regarding IT security. So the HAVA grant that you guys got money for the tabulators, is that a complete, I guess, update of your IT system, or is it just the machines that tabulate?
Okay, so actually, it's for cybersecurity, and cybersecurity includes the upgrades. We are, as we speak, looking into our voter registry system that we need to update and upgrade. We hope to include also our connectivity to DMV. If you remember, Senator Perez, back in 2015, a law was passed to implement online and motor voter registration. Well, we have increased our voter rolls, but most of the operations of online voter registration and motor voter registration, only on the voter side is it computerized. As soon as the voter enters all the data, everything is absolutely human-driven. So right now, at the Election Commission, we have four people working full-time and overtime on voter registration.
Wow. And so do you have grants in play that will address that?
Absolutely. So come 2018, we received a $600,000 grant. Come 2020 February, we received an additional $600,000.
Okay. And would that upgrade your system to an appropriate level? So with the IT, is that a complete IT upgrade, or is that just one portion of the?
Senator, I don't know if it's ever complete because of the rapid, the fluidity of technology upgrades. So, but to get us to get us further on along, yes.
So in the GEC notes, there was a mention that purging voters is a significant cost.
Yes.
So have you found anything to address that as far as reducing, maybe offsetting some of these costs?
Yes. With the voter registry system, with an upgrade and an update in the new voter registry system, we hope to make it so that it's not human driven. Again, right now that process is human driven.
Great. And just to clarify, how often do you think you have to upgrade?
You know, based on our experience, we bought those machines that we used last election cycle in 2014. The 450s and the 450s were not available then. The 850 just became available. But at that time, I think there were like 150,000 each. So your question is how soon? That just historically or from experience, 2014 to 2020, 6 years. And something that I want to bring light to is our sisters and brothers in Saipan, CNMI, they're buying exactly the same equipment they don't have a primary, so they'll use it also in their general election. They, for the first time, have gotten a HAVA grant. So they just received a HAVA grant, and that's what that's what allowed them to buy their equipment as well. Even Palau has the same equipment. So I'm looking forward to, getting more sources of technical of a network, so that I can see what their experience is with the same piece of equipment.
Do these new equipment come with security guarantees? How good is the security?
Thank you for asking, Senator Paris. Our new equipment still is not on the internet. So it's not at all connected to the internet. The tabulation itself it goes through the Election Assistance Commission certification process. So all the equipment we buy goes through that, including the electionware or the election results management software.
So that means it's pretty secure.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. No further questions.
Thank you, Senator Paris. That being stated, and all my colleagues have completed their question, and then we do have a bill following this budget hearing, with the Guam Election Commission. And Ms. Pangilinan, I do hope that we can pass the Budget Act and that we would give you what you need so you don't have to keep coming back like what we're going to do in the next hour. That being said, the committee will conclude the budget hearing with the Guam Election Commission. The committee will continue to receive testimony. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator joe@gmail.com. Since Mazi for attendance and participating in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The budget hearing on Bill 282-35, relative to the Guam Election Commission, is now adjourned. It is now 3:55, and we will return in about 10 minutes because the system has to update for the next bill. All right, with the Guam Election Commission. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.